The origins of it are rooted in my biography. I've lived in Hong Kong actually since 1994, and in 1998 my wife received a very interesting job offer in Paris, and she really wanted to move back. I didn't. But I've learned that you never stand between a woman and Paris. So I agreed, and in the summer of 2008, we moved back. And my problem basically was that I didn't like Paris and I couldn't find anything to photograph. So I holed myself up and decided to explore the city using only Google Street View. And I very quickly hit upon the idea, why don't I photograph from the monitor scenes which I discover, details, crops from every one of these Street View images. And I proceeded to put together quite a large collection of photographs, and that was my first Street View project. So then I decided to expand upon the Paris Street View project and go international. They're from Sao Paulo, from New York, from several cities in Holland. Actually, bicycle accidents are from Holland. From Italy. Actually, I would jump around also. Sometimes I would get tired of London and I would say, oh, why don't I go to Manhattan? And it's so easy. You can do it in 2 seconds with Google Street View. You don't even have to get on an airplane. I started researching Google Street View, and there are quite a few amateur groups of Google viewers who, whenever a new city goes online, it must be a swarm of people who go through and they try to discover unusual things happening. The difficulty is, of course, that Google is not interested in having these so-called unusual or unfortunate events on their website. So they go and within 24 to 48 hours, they delete them. So basically, you have to keep up on an almost daily basis to see what's going on. Well, it's very time-consuming, actually, because in order not to miss anything, I would really go by street by street by street and go through every image and look at every square inch of every image. Because, of course, the crop is crucial with these things. The crop is what makes it my picture. If I see a pigeon flying up, I can do a variety of crops. I can go back 5 inches and get the pigeon in the car on it, or I can just get the wing of the pigeon. So there are lots of different possibilities, as there are in real street photography, to make it my image. I spent maybe 500 hours over a period of 6 months working on these things, and then I would take a break for a month or so because I just couldn't bear to live in this two-dimensional world any longer. It was crazy. I was extremely thrilled when I heard that the World Press Jury honored this work, because I knew it would generate a huge amount of discussion, and I realized that the World Press Jury was also interested in pushing the limits of what photojournalism can be. So in that sense, I thought it's a great development. You know, in the history of art, this idea of appropriating other images that are not one's own is quite common. Roy Lichtenstein did it with his comic strips, you know, where he took a comic strip and just took a piece of it and made it very big, which I do with my Street View work, because the prints I show are also 1.80 by 220, so they're in proportion to that small piece of imagery I take out of the screen. They're huge. On February 11th, I got an email from the World Press, and 10 minutes later I received an email from the British Journal of Photography requesting an interview because they thought it was a very controversial decision. So we talked on the phone and you know, about many of the issues we're talking about now. And then the next day it was online, and then I looked at the comments. This afternoon in my talk, I'll read the 4 first comments, and they're just, it's vitriol. I mean, how can this be considered photojournalism? And Wolf used to be a good photographer, but now he's really going down the tubes. He's just looking for commercial aspects to sell his art. So I think a lot of these people are just not familiar with the history of appropriation in art. And of course it's photography. I'm using a camera and taking pictures. It's just on a different level. It's a virtual way of interpreting our reality. Well, I was very concerned when I started the project that I would get a call from one of Google's lawyers. But I then read an interesting comment online. I researched, of course, has anyone else been sued or had any legal problems? And I think in 2009, Google came out with a statement where they said they would not pursue anyone using Google Imagery for artistic purposes. So I really, in the end, I didn't want to have a legal problem with Google because they have very deep pockets, and it could have tied me up for years. So when I read that, I was actually quite relieved. I've been working with Google Street View intermittently now for 2 years. So I think I will put together one large book. I've done two small books, one called Asui, a series of unfortunate events, and the other one called FY, Fuck You, um, which both had limited editions of 500 copies. But I would like to put together a large body of work where all my Street View work is condensed and edited in one volume. But other than that, I'm already on to other projects. I think 2 years and 500 or 600 hours in front of a monitor is quite enough. It's nice to go out into the real world again.